And welcome in, folks. It's Scott Fishbowl Day. It's here. The day we've been talking about for the past, what feels like months at this point. I'm beyond excited. It's Monday, July 8th. We are ready to dive in fully. A few of us might or might not be on the clock. We'll talk about that here in a second. But we're just going to dive into everything Scott Fishbowl. So join us today as we talk about it. It's here, folks. It's here. Welcome in. It is myself and Jeremy Shulman. Rocking our Scott Fishbowl gear, as you could tell. Jeremy's was a bit more expensive because he had to ship it halfway across the world. You know, such is life with those things.
But it is Amsterdam, representing Amsterdam with Heineken. So.
The home country, baby. I love it. How's your day going?
Yeah.
I saw you were just talking to Jagger a little bit ago. How did that show go for you?
Yeah, Jagger May, awesome guy. Talked a little bit about Dynasty Basics, getting a little bit more specific, but we're going to have a series rolling out in a week or two here about all different types of formats. So guys like Jagger and Tom Strachan talking about best ball, Jagger talking about Dynasty. We've had a few more guys on and a few more to come. But just to kind of introduce everybody to the formats, give them some basic and intermediate and advanced level strategies. And yeah, Jagger was awesome. So it was good to chop it up with him.
Yeah, if anybody missed that show, go check out our YouTube page. It is right on there. You'll actually see it on Twitter. Basically, all social media platforms it was streaming on. So go check it out. I highly recommend it. Jagger is one of the brightest young upcoming minds in the space. So you will get a lot of good nuggets on that. Yeah, so what with you going on the clock, you already picked in the first round. Why don't you run us through your first round pick, and then we can kind of dive into Scott Fishbowl a little bit more. So I went from the 107, and I was a little concerned. We'll throw up the board a little bit later, but I was a little concerned about, number one, I like to be as close to that third round reversal as possible. I want 3 top 30 picks, if possible, in the first 3 rounds. So ideally, you want to get back towards the end of that first round so that you're at the beginning of the second and third round. I was a little concerned about missing out on a top tier quarterback, so I picked the 107 slot. I was hoping for Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, just premier rushing quarterback. You know he's got that elite floor. You mix that with his elite ceiling, especially in Scott Fishbowl with the points per rush and first downs. The dude is going to be a monster. If Anthony Richardson finishes as the 101 in the Scott Fishbowl, I wouldn't be surprised. But I got another guy who could finish as the 101 in the Scott Fishbowl. And I think if you look at the scoring, he was very close to doing that last season as an MVP, reigning MVP, Lamar Jackson, falling to the 107. We had a few quarterbacks go before. Patrick Mahomes went, I think, at the 103 or the 104. We'll take a look at that in a minute. I don't mind that. I know a lot of people want that elite rushing floor, but Patrick Mahomes is in for a big bounce back. So at the 107, I was confident I was getting one of A-Rich or Lamar or even Patrick Mahomes if people were fading the pocket passers. I got Lamar. I'm ecstatic. And I'm actually on the clock in round 2, so we'll get there in a moment. But Jesse, you are on the clock right now. We need to talk about your first round pick. Yeah, I'm at the 105 in the Dread Pirate Roberts division. Those of you who don't know, if you were born in the 80s, you definitely know who that is. But that is the Princess Bride movie, and it's something close to my heart. I've seen it like probably 50 times in my life growing up. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Interestingly enough, I was hoping for CMC. When ADP came out on the live draft, I realized that's not freaking possible. CMC's been going 101, 102 basically every draft. People are getting a lot smarter with how they're treating this format. And even though it's QB scoring, right? Like heavily, they're like, nope, we don't even care. Let's see if we can shift this a little bit so this gets bigger. But
that's me.
Yeah,
I got you.
Okay. Yeah. So how this one went is CMC, and then it was Hurts over Allen, which I found interesting because if you look at points per game basis, Allen's been the best scoring quarterback besides Lamar's peak 2019 season. It's been Allen, especially in this scoring format and how they value that. So I was surprised to see that. And then they have Mahomes go. This puts me in a weird spot because, I'm chasing ceiling from these quarterbacks, and it's between 2 guys we've already talked about. It's Lamar and it's Anthony Richardson. The thing is, I think the floor is really, really high with Lamar, and he has, a high-ish ceiling. I think Richardson has the higher ceiling. And this is how I play fast and loose with fantasy sometimes, where I'm like, I could go for Richardson here, and I'm still back and forth, but I think I'm just going to go Lamar here and just lock it in just because the safety, and I don't have to worry about the injury concerns. But this is the whole issue I talk about the whole offseason, right? With Henry coming in, I expect him to steal some of those touchdowns and things of that nature. I just think overall they'll kind of work together. But if I'm chasing ceiling between the two, I think actually Richardson has a better shot to go like nuclear, like Lamar's 2019 where he had 34 points per game. I don't see that out of Lamar, but yeah. And Joe gets it right here. Hunter, it's like, yeah, it's a good decision to be. This is why I went 105. I knew I was going to find someone that fell to me and happily. Like, I was okay with that. I'm a little bummed. I thought people would be more into the quarterbacks, but such is life. Let's just lock this in real quick before I can do this. All right.
Well, hang on before you do, Jesse, before you do, let's just remind everybody of the Scott Fishbowl scoring. So you get 1 point for 50 yards passing. So that's a slight downgrade from what you're used to in your fantasy leagues. But it's a 6 point per passing touchdown. And it's also for the rushing quarterbacks, it's 1 point per 10 yards, which is normal. Half a point for every first down and 0.25 points. So a quarter of a point for every rushing attempt. And when you're talking about Lamar Jackson and, of course, Anthony Richardson, you're talking about the most rushing attempts of any quarterback in the league, maybe in history. And those guys are going to be absolute monsters. If a quarterback has 10 rushing attempts in a game, that's an extra 2.5 points that you can just chalk up in addition to whatever they might do in terms of getting a first down. And then whatever they might do, of course, on the ground in terms of yardage and in terms of scoring touchdowns. So we love that here in Scott Fishbowl. And yeah, I'm with you, Jesse. Lamar Jackson is an absolute smash.
Yeah, like for those that don't know how many like rushing attempts he's had, Lamar's averaged 145 rushing attempts in his career when he's been a starter. So like the dude's just gonna peak run a ton for you. So I think like overall, that's why the floor is super high with him because the format rewards him. I just don't know if he has that like peak touchdown 40 season. That's my whole issue with him. Yeah, and this is what I've been talking about. Like we've been talking about on our channel a lot. Actually, is like I don't see why Henry specifically is below JT and Saquon of those guys. I think they should all be grouped together. But he's similarly in this format. I've seen Henry like fall down to like the 6th round, and I'm like, dude, that's such a smash getting Henry at that cost. But with all that said, like this is why we're so bullish on these rushing quarterbacks, particularly in this format more than we were. This format rewards Lamar more than other formats, so like I'm pushing him out higher because if this was your traditional league where you're not getting these boosts, I'm not considering Lamar here. I'm going to take I would basically like go for a different position or go for there. But like with the scoring and the way it's set up, I don't know. Like with Stroud, like I don't think he can reach that ceiling. So you have to bank on him being like Brady a few years ago or something along that nature for him to hit that ceiling you're going for, right? So, I think the one other thing we can touch base on here before I make this pick is the bye weeks and how it impacts your decision because this is kind of how we talked about into your second pick, but the bye weeks in the playoffs are something people should pay attention to because if you're stacking teams in week 14, when you make the playoffs, if you do make the playoffs, which, hopefully everybody does, then you have an issue of when you get there because you're going to be at a disadvantage when you're missing like CMC, Lamar, all these guys in the playoffs who give you that advantage. Like your team has to make it without those guys. So that's just another little caveat you kind of have to take notice because playoffs start in week 12 in this. Like they start really early in this format because it's 4,000 teams. Like it kind of has to start early. You can't do like it later this season. So just a heads up. That's why. All right. Enough lollygagging with this. I'm just going to hang on. Yes.
Yeah. Lock it in as you do that. To your point, in week 12, there are 6 teams on bye. There are no buys in week 13. I have no idea why. Maybe fantasy football. Weird. In week 14, there are another 6 teams on bye. So that's 12 teams. That's a third of the league who are on bye in the Scott Fish fantasy playoffs. It's a consideration. And Jesse said it to me in the most pleasant of ways off camera. He said, I said, I took Lamar Jackson. Mark Andrews is still there in round 2. And he said, very politely, you sure you want to do that, in the third round of the Scott Fish playoffs? And, I had to think about that. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But Jesse, looking at what's going on here and kind of just projecting out the end of the first and the second round here, what are you looking at coming back around here now that you have Lamar? Who are you hoping for and who are, 2 or 3 players who you're comfortable taking next?
Yeah, I think what I'm looking for is ideally the guy that you're planning on drafting the second round. That's the guy, and that's Kyler Murray. He's the rushing upside. Like his peak a few years ago was 27 points per game in this format. I think it was 2020 was his season where he did that. I need to double check the stats, but if you're curious, you can. Peter Howard has listed basically from Amaze Hayes all their points per game basis in this scoring format, and I'm looking right now. Where is he? Sorry, he's not pulling up. Kyler Murray, yeah, 27 points in 2020. So like that's the peak he's given anybody in this format. Lamar's peak is 34, so it's like a whole nother level. But I want the elite rushing quarterback if one of them falls. What I'm looking for, if I can't get one of those guys, is like Jaden Daniels in round 3. I think potentially I can get him, but I need him to fall a little bit. I think it's more likely kind of have to reach for Daniels to get him in the second round. Outside of that, I think with one of these elite wide receivers like Lamb or Tyreek Hill fall, because by the way, they outscored the quarterbacks in this format last year. They were 27 points per game, like 26 actually. The only quarterback who outscored them was Allen. So those 2 wide receivers did it. But I would like the elite running back. I would target one of those guys. The tight end, I think, is an interesting discussion. I'm trying to chase someone who's going to give me that elite difference-making ceiling. And these tight ends are so close for me to get. And like in round 2, that's why I have a hard time going with those guys. I would need like a tier break from these wide receivers. But like I've seen Jamar Chase in this range. I've seen like Justin Jefferson in that range. Seen Tyreek Hill, or like if Brees or Bijan fall, like that would be great. I don't expect that to happen. So I'm kind of letting this board dictate how my draft's going to go. So ideally, I want Kyler. If it doesn't happen, then I'll probably just pull the trigger on the top wide receiver, top running back on the board, just set my team up and see how that goes. Yeah. But like from strategy perspective, I want like 2 elite tight ends by round 6. That's kind of what my goal is going into this. So we'll see how that shakes out. But Hunter makes another good point here. Like Richardson is like going to run the ball a ton. And this is what worries me about the guys in the other guys on that team. Like, it's a lot. Like if you do the math on that per game, like that's a ton of rushing attempts. Like you're talking the 150, 160 rushing attempts, which is close to what Lamar's been in his career. Lamar's peak is 176. I think Fields is the only guy that's really hit that in a season. So if you want to take a dart throw on Fields really late, go for it. Because if he's going to play, he's going to go nuclear in this format. But let's kind of jump to you. With you also getting Lamar a little bit later, so you get the better value. What's your kind of plan going into like round 2? Is it, I know you're talking about the elite tight end or maybe like the other quarterback here. Is that kind of your bold overall strategy you're looking for?
Yeah. So here's the board. I switched it here. So I'm in the Globo Gym Cobras. What is it like?
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
Like cross I can't remember.
Gotta love it. My team name is Cotton's Bold Strategy. So we're ready to go here, and hoping not to draft some average Joes. But you see how the board plays out. We had 3 QBs go in the first 6 picks. It's really hard to blame guys who want to pick CMC, Tyreek Hill, and even CeeDee Lamb. I get it. I mean, those guys are set up for insane volume, and the scoring here, go for it. There are no bad first round picks. It's all how you construct your team, right? But Lamar Jackson falling to the 107 for me. Like I said at the top, I was hoping to get Anthony Richardson. Lamar Jackson fell, and that was just an absolute smash. Second year in a Todd Monken system, and he's ready to roll. He only had, I think, was it 24 passing touchdowns? I'm looking it up now. 24 passing touchdowns last season, which was the 3rd highest of his career. But of course, again, he was getting used to a new system. Mark Andrews was injured and out for about half the season. There were issues outside of Zay Flowers with all of the receiving core. And of course, he had over the last 2 seasons issues at running back. Keaton Mitchell, who came on, went down with injury, of course. J.K. Dobbins was never right, never came back. Gus Edwards was out there doing his best, but they realized they were giving him too many touches. And on 13 touchdowns, Gus Edwards was still barely a running back 2 over the course of the season. So it just wasn't working for them on offense last year. And still, Lamar held it down, did his best, because he had 148 rushing attempts for 821 yards and 5 touchdowns. So even if the rushing regresses a little bit, because we know Monken's offense wants to pass, and we know that Derrick Henry is now in the fold, ready to take on as much as he can handle and propel this team to championship level status. even if that regresses a little bit, it's possible that with a healthier core of pass catchers, that Lamar Jackson can approach that 30 touchdown level, which is what we want to see. In his first MVP season, he had 36 touchdowns. That may through the air. That may be a little too rich in terms of expectations, but I think he can approach 30 touchdowns. And if that rushing comes down, then he's the Lamar we expect. If that rushing stays elite, maybe he's more efficient with it because of the threat of Derrick Henry. Who knows? Lamar Jackson could absolutely be the 101 in fantasy football formats all across the board. So I'm happy to take that bet there. Although A-Rich at 108 right after me is another great pick. And I think, I would have been happy with either of those guys. But if you look at the board and the way it played out, Jesse, to your question, we'd have Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. Let's see if I can scroll over and get the entire board in here. So we had CJ Stroud and then Dak Prescott at the 112. I don't hate Dak Prescott that early. The Cowboys have shown that all they're going to do is pass the football, but I do believe that Dak had a bit of a light schedule the back half of the year. So I'm not sure that he's up there on my board in terms of redraft, but it's hard to be upset at Dak. I mean, he could easily have another 40 passing touchdowns. I'm not sure what he had last year, but he was up there. And a pocket passer who's going to get 40 passing touchdowns. I mean, that's the type of guy you want to bet on. CJ Stroud, for example, is in the ultimate situation, coming off a great year one. I don't hate him in the first round at all here. But if you look at how the second round went with those elite wide receiver options with 2 top tight ends, I don't think I can pass up the value of Kyler Murray. He's not even showing on the board there, but you talked about it, Jesse, the guy that you're looking to get. Kyler Murray is absolutely a stud. He's there below Garrett Wilson. The offense is brand new. You have a new running back mate there to help spell James Conner, keep both of them fresh and healthy. That's going to help improve. Of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. comes in here, and he's the most dynamic prospect we've seen in a couple of years at the wide receiver position. It's possible that he completely vaults this offense. All of the news out of camp was that Marvin Harrison Jr. is just taking this offense immediately to the next level. We have Jesse's boyfriend at this point, Trey McBride, over there in Arizona. So it's really, really setting up nicely for Kyler Murray. And we don't have Cliff Kingsbury over there. So I don't know. We haven't seen a cliffless Kyler Murray for a full season. Kyler wasn't healthy last year. I would love to see Kyler Murray get out there and just absolutely sling it to these weapons. The tertiary weapons aren't bad in the passing game either. So Kyler Murray can do it through the air. And like we've talked about, he can do it on the ground too.
Yeah. I think that's what it is with Kyler. Last year, people faded him to the point where it was just pretty absurd, where it's like, he's going to be injured. And if you had him in Dynasty, it was the ideal time to scoop him up because we're seeing the ADP difference in this format, particularly to what he's listed. Like if you go to Dynasty Data Lab, Badiko, who is excellent with numbers, and you follow his website, like the guy puts in the work on the sleeper leagues, he scrapes them. Kyler's going mid-second. I know his ADP doesn't say that, but people are being smart about how they're taking him because like the upside is there. We talk about these rushing quarterbacks. He's a good quarterback and he can actually support his weapons on top of it too. Unlike a Justin Fields where we didn't see that. And I think it's questionable with Jaden Daniels if he can or he can't do that. That's the ceiling case. Like you have these rushing quarterbacks, it's the floor. This is what JJ Zachary talks about. They're a floor play. To hit the ceiling, they need to be a capable passer and like succeeds the passer. That's how Lamar hit his monster season where he had 30 plus touchdowns passing. Is that 29th season he went nuclear. So we're kind of looking for guys in good situations to do that. So I think where you're at in the draft, because if you pass Kyler here, it's almost like, are you willing to reach for a quarterback in the third round, right? Because the third round reversal, that's more than 12 picks away. Like that's a ways away. So you kind of have to wait because you see two teams that don't have a quarterback and a couple other teams are going to get their second quarterback here. So it's going to be like, all right, who do I take there? Maybe a Dak falls, maybe he doesn't. And you know what I'm saying? So you kind of have to take that into consideration with how Superflex goes. So for me, I think the ceiling shot with Kyler is well worth the cost right here for you.
Yeah. And the other options who I would consider personally, I love Joe Burrow. I don't know that he's definitely going to be approaching those 45 touchdown passes. It's certainly possible, but the wrist injury scares me slightly enough mixed with the fact that he doesn't rush that I'm going to pass on him here when Kyler's on the board. And if we're talking other positions, you see Puka is here. I'm slightly down on Puka, like 3 or 4 spots. It's not, I just think Cooper Kupp is still most of what Cooper Kupp has always been. We know Matt Stafford's going to distribute the football, and Puka is still going to be a monster. But I would probably prefer Jahmyr Gibbs or even A.J. Brown over Puka. Garrett Wilson is interesting. He's kind of the mystery box with Aaron Rodgers, hopefully healthy for a full season there. And then you see Marvin Harrison, who would be kind of interesting. I don't think it happens, but if Marvin Harrison falls to the 3rd round, I mean, that would be phenomenal value right there. I don't think it's going to happen. But there is kind of this question that will, I'll throw it up here and I'll just say, talking about tight ends, the other consideration for me, and he's further down the list, was Mark Andrews, right? And so what you could do with Mark Andrews is you could take the tight end, and we'll get this question and we can answer both of them at the same time. You take the tight end and then you stack that tight end here with Lamar Jackson in the 1st and 2nd round. I think the value is appropriate. I think those two can easily be the number 1 at their respective position. But Jesse, as you mentioned earlier, there's the concern about week 14. So why don't we start, just tell us, what you would think here if I took Mark Andrews or you had Mark Andrews on the board and you ended up taking him. How would you feel about that being a tight end that's stacked and one that has that week 14 bye?
All right, I'll hit the wide receiver part of this first, which you're talking about second, with like Puka and those guys. The ceiling case for the wide receiver, like we saw it last year, is basically 26 points per game. We've seen tight ends. Kelsey's gone 34 points per game before, like the guy who just went right before you. Like he's hit a true difference-making ceiling, and I think it's really hard for wide receivers to hit that. So, and also running backs, like McCaffrey was over 30 last year. Like these guys, if they hit their true peak range of outcomes, like the difference-making ability those positions have over wide receiver, this is why these guys are getting pushed up, is because you can kind of break fantasy or Scott Fishbowl with this scoring format. So I don't mind going tight end. I would prefer the elite tight end. I just personally taking tight end in round 2, like especially if you're stacking, both the quarterback and tight end need to basically be like number 1 at their position, because if you take them there and they don't hit that right, it's just a narrow bet to make. But like you're betting on your quarterback, you want to bet on your tight end. It totally makes sense. Like I'm always for stacking. It's just at this cost compared to other positions, when you have other premium players available, that's the decision you have to make. So we take all of these decisions like we're talking about with bye weeks and stuff, like you add that into it. Do you really want to bet on both of those guys? And like the whole thing with Lamar that like struggles is because he's a rushing quarterback, it kind of steals pass attempts out of the offense on top of it too. So it's really hard for the pass catchers in that offense. It has to be super consolidated. So like Zay Flowers is a guy that we've talked about before, and Andrews, like I don't really want to take anyone else early in that offense, and thankfully you don't have to because the running backs are so cheap. The like wide receiver 3 and those guys are like basically free. But it's just something we have to consider like with the picks of who we're taking. So like ideally if you can get Andrews around 3, I think that would be great, because like we know the floor is super high with Andrews. He's been really good. It's just like the opportunity cost of passing on Kyler, who could really give you a top 3 quarterback season. Yeah. I don't know if Kyler can give you QB1 season. Maybe it's possible, but like that seems kind of unlikely. But compared to like Andrews, he's at worst case, he's going to be like what, tight end 7, maybe tight end 8, like worst case. Yeah. And we've seen him before be tight end 1 and push towards tight end 1 before too. So like I think you just have to know the bet you're making and the opportunity cost, weigh all of those things together and be like, all right. But yeah, if the whole bonus point for stacking is the playoffs and big formats, which this is when we get to the playoffs. Like a lot of these teams in the past, like we saw the Eagles team that won a couple of years ago, they won because Kenneth Gainwell scored a touchdown for them. Like that's basically why they won in that format, right? So it's like these late, super cheap stack options where it's like I'll throw a dart on Rashad Bateman, or I'll throw a dart on, I'm blanking on whoever it is, another guy in that offense, like Isaiah Likely, super late. Like you throw the darts late. Nelson Aguilar, any one of those guys, right? You just kind of like, and you're in the double, like 15 around 22 each, kind of is like, I might as well grab the correlation, which is something else we could dive into if you want to, but that's more best ball. But like, you want to correlate those weeks at the end of the season, right? Where it's like, all right, here's the matchups they have. It just, you're kind of getting into the minutia a little overthinking at that point. Like right now, I'm just, who's the best guy? Can they give me the number one range of outcomes in the ceiling? Like, cool, I'll take that guy there, and I'll kind of worry about it later.
100%. And the other thing that goes into this, so I'm just going to push this down for a second, just to show you again that I am one after this pick, which I'll make in a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Third round reversal. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 picks away. So if you look at 11 picks, is it more likely that one of these top 4 tight ends who I still really like, or even Evan Ingram, falls to me at the 306? Or is it more likely that, I don't know, a Jordan Love or Brock Purdy, again, guys without the rushing upside, but guys that could throw a ton of touchdowns, is it more likely that those guys fall to me? I'm not comfortable with a Caleb Williams. So I'm really looking at this range of quarterback here that I want, minus Justin Herbert. I don't think the volume's there for him this year. Or do I think that this range of tight end falls to me? And obviously, I'm going to bet that the tight end falls. So we're going to go ahead and take Kyler Murray and start off the Scott Fishbowl with 2 elite quarterbacks, or rushing quarterbacks. Now, let's get into this question here, Jesse, as I kind of, let's see if we can first kind of remove duo. What am I doing? Hey, stuff, right? We got there. Look at that. Look at that. But let's first move to this question here, which we threw up before. And we were just talking about tight ends with the tight end premium. So I think have a look at this question. Much more important than tight ends and pass catching running backs. Are they more important than wide receivers? I would say yes. But before I do, let me just quickly read you. Do I not have it? The Scott Fishbowl scoring. Jesse, do you have this memorized for tight ends? What is the tight end premium?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. So tight end receptions is 1.5 PPR, right? And then there's an extra 1 point for a first down on top of it. So every catch that's the first down, not including the yardage, is 2.5 points. And then whatever the yards are, so if it's 10 points, that's 3.5 points for the tight end. Then you get the bonus 0.5 per receiving touchdown or reception that everyone gets. And you're looking at 4. So a 10-yard reception for a tight end is 4 points because you get a first down, 10 yards, and then you get the bonuses on top of it. So like they get a massive boost where this is why I said I want 2 of the elite tight ends by round 6, because I want those guys. And this also gets into the fact of Scott Fishbowl is the format of starting positions is chaotic as hell this year. There's basically just flex positions everywhere outside of the one singular player you have to start. Like if you pulled up, like you're starting quarterback, a super flex, and you don't even have to do QB2, you can do whatever. Then you get 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, and then it's a bunch of flex spots. So you really can play with this format more than like any other format. It reminds me of the Ryan McDowell kitchen sink leagues where it's just like start whatever you want. So it's however you prefer to go about starting your team. This is why, Rick, I really probably won't end up with too many wide receivers early on, because I want those other premium positions, like the running backs get a boost above the wide receivers and the tight ends. So if I could lock those guys in, and then I could get a little bit later where we see Flowers or like Waddle or like even Higgins, if you're in those guys, they're falling to a range that's like round 7. It's like, dude, I'll pulling the trigger on those guys around 7, because you kind of have to find, and this gets into war, which is kind of like where I love to kind of get into the details of it. You find like the cutoff point of like where the values differentiate. Like it's like, all right, once Evan Ingram goes to tight end, it's kind of like, these guys are a little bit sketchy, so I'm push these guys down. Find your cutoff point where the elite running backs are, and then you could kind of like pivot to tight end or wide receiver, or same thing with quarterback too. Because if you miss, do you really want to push up, I don't know, like a Trevor Lawrence in round 3? Do you really want to go that route when you don't have to, because it's not dynasty, right? So these are kind of all the decisions we have to make when we're on the clock. Thankfully, it's a slow draft. If it's a live draft, it's even more chaotic, and it's just like, oh shit, I got to get this guy because I don't know what's going to happen. But with us having multiple hours to figure it out, it kind of helps. So like, you don't have to panic pick. Take your time. Make sure you know what your strategy is, and then when you're on the clock in round 3 or 4, you kind of look, you see what's available. You can kind of watch the board, use the ADP, and be like, can I get this guy there? No, all right, I might have to reach for this tight end here or get the guy there, because I know we talk about not reaching, but being close in ADP, like I'm fine pulling the trigger if you're worried about missing out on a certain player that you really like, because at the end of the day, we should like the team that we're drafting. You shouldn't take a team that you're like, oh God, I hate this team, because that's not fun.
Totally agree. To the point about the pass catching running backs, though, here in this question, obviously we love Jahmyr Gibbs, we love Devon Achane. The guys who are going to Alvin Kamara is a nice value a little bit later. The guys who are catching passes, as we've heard time and again, a target is worth 2.5 points on average as related to the 1 point for a rush. And that's just over seasons and seasons worth of data that have been mined and collated. You'll hear this number. I don't know if it's Dynasty Nerds, but from a number of outlets, it's roughly 2.5 times worth of regular rush. That's a target in the passing game. The highly targeted backs are guys that you want on your fantasy teams. That said, I also love the volume rushers in this format because if you run the football 16 times, which, is David Montgomery, right? David Montgomery is probably going to run the ball 16 times in most games. That's an extra 4 points for David Montgomery. Now, imagine he scores. Imagine he has 60 yards. This is kind of a standard David Montgomery game. That's a massive boost for a guy like him. James Conner is a great example. I don't mind these volume backs that will see a few targets out of the backfield. Derrick Henry is a great example of this. Guys who are just going to get their value boosted here. So I think pass catching running backs in this format and volume running backs are closer than in a lot of other formats. And I want both of them over guys like Zay Flowers and T. Higgins. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think if you get the combination of both, this is why CMC is such an advantage because he's a pass catching running back and gives you insane volume. If we look at Derrick Henry in this format, Derrick Henry is a monster and should be going a lot higher than he is because you're heavily rewarding these rushing. Like if you're pushing 300 carries in a season, these guys are getting a massive boost. So it kind of it almost evens out. Like if you look at points per game basis, he's outscaled Alvin Kamara. Even in Kamara's peak season, Henry was better. Henry's been above that. Like he's been 26, 29, 27. I think he had 26 and then he had 20 last year. Like he's still really good even in his role. So if you could find volume running backs, this is kind of like the best ball innings eater guys. So anybody I don't care if you think they're ugly. If they're going to give you a lot of volume, that's a guy I want on my roster because this format rewards volume. So usually in these, I'm not going to be bullish on, you talked about Kamara or Connor or Mixon's another good example. Guys that fall in this format, Mixon's but they're going to get volume, right? So they're going to be more beneficial to you than these wide receiver 3 types, right? These guys that it's really hard in this format to push above scoring. We look at T. Higgins last year. Dude was rough in this format. He was a negative for you every time you started him. So you kind of have to understand what the format rewards and its volume. And if you get pass catching volume too on top of it, that's why you'll see these elite running backs, Bijan and Brees, Jahmyr Gibbs, those guys we expect. I think the most interesting one of the group that could possibly be elite is Achane. But he's probably not going to get the volume. So I'm definitely going to take a Henry over him. In other formats, I would take Achane.
Yeah, I agree.
But in this format particularly, I'm smashing Henry over Achane. It just seems a lot riskier bet with him. So you kind of have to know the format and dive into that because you'll get an advantage from those guys. Because you can look at the scoring on a points per game basis. Some of these guys get a boost. Some of these wide receivers, it's Christian Kirk last year, we loved him. He was 14 points per game in this format. That's not great. Now you look at James Conner, he was 21 points per game in this format. You see the difference in how those two guys score. It's massive. So you should definitely be taking that running back over that wide receiver.
100%. And Jesse, just looking over the data just now, tell me which running back led the league in rushing first downs last season because they get 0.5 points per rushing first down. It's a guy I will continue to bang the table for. It's a guy whose teammate we just talked about. It's Raheem Mostert. Stop sleeping on old man Mostert. He had 30 rushing touchdowns in addition to some of the receiving work. It's going to regress, but he had 21 touchdowns. He's going to regress to 14, 15 touchdowns. You're insane if you're kind of fading Raheem Mostert the way everyone else is. I think it's just the only thing here is injury, but this is what we want. We want guys who have enough volume. I mentioned David Montgomery, Raheem Mostert. These are guys in very similar situations who are going to be valuable running backs for you in a format like this because they can be steady floors at 10 to 12 points a game. even if they don't score, they can get a couple of first downs. They can, with the rushing attempts, 10 to 12 points a game. And then when they score, especially Raheem Mostert scores 2 touchdowns a game,
Right.
they're absolutely going to help you win that week. So, those sort of volume backs or backs in great offenses that get the rock more than these electric backs like Gibbs and Achane, who are rightly going before them. They really have the opportunity to help elevate your team. Do not sleep on the pass catching backs, but also the higher volume backs.
100%. To your point, like Moeller, even 2 years ago, he was 20 points per game in this format. So like he was 22 last year, 22 the year before that. I mean, he got his little injuries last year. He's like 3 points per game in this format. So like, don't count that. That just is what it is. But yeah, like if you see a guy getting significant volume over the other one, I'm gonna prefer that running back. Now it's different at wide receiver because like I think a guy that's undervalued is Debo because he gets a rushing boost. So like if you're deciding between the wide receivers for the Niners, give me Debo. Like it's not even close because you're gonna get that rushing boost on top of it too. So like this is where the format comes in. Like guys where I'd be closer on, I'm like I get significant leans one or the other. So I'm fine taking these old dusty running backs, in parentheses dusty or whatever. But like when you get to that cutoff point when we talk about these players, like that's what you should do. Another guy's interesting shot at CJ Hawkinson. He's been really good in this format. Like you could play that game if you want to. I don't think there's any IR spots, so like I might need to consider that. But like you could do that where you draft Hawkinson, he's going like round 9 in this format, similar to other guys, and you kind of have to like determine like, am I cool rostering that guy because I can get a boost from him towards the stretch and like be in the playoffs. So another like this is where strategy comes into it. It's so fun because you could do this scenario with 150 different players and come to 150 different decisions. So like that's what I love Scott Fishbowl when it does is because it kind of changes how your mind thinks about these guys, right? So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Hey, famous Jay. So we talked about stacking. Let's just stick with this question again a little bit because the question implies that we want all of these other positions over wide receiver, and I do. I want wide receivers at the bottom of the draft. I'm picking up value because, like I said, I have now 2 elite rushing quarterbacks at the top who fell right into my lap just where I was drafting. It worked out. Because of that, I want one of those elite tight ends. We have about 4.5 of them left because if it's only Evan Ingram, I'll probably reach on Evan Ingram. And outside of that, I'm smashing running back. Like I don't need a wide receiver 1. I can get by with a bunch of wide receiver 2s in this format because all you're doing are getting first downs, right? 0.5 point for first down. So you can collect those short yardage. I mean, the guy we've been screaming from the rooftops all offseason, Deontay Johnson, is buried in this format. Go get Deontay Johnson on Sleeper in the 9th round. Yep. Because he won't show up until then, as the ADP climbs and climbs, as all these guys have been taken, and people will say, "Oh, Deontay Johnson," and then you snag him. Round 9 is perfect value for Deontay. There's other guys. I mean, you mentioned the Debo boost. Jaden Reed is a guy who goes a little bit later, who could have that Debo boost as well. As we invite our boy Aaron over here. What up?
Welcome in, Aaron.
So we were just talking.
Yeah. I've been backstage for like 25 minutes. I couldn't get my microphone to work for like 25 minutes.
Well, you made
good, man. We were just talking about wide receivers. Yep. Jesse, why don't we go to you first as Aaron enters and exits? Why don't we go to you first and just tell us a little bit about your thought process here with wide receivers? We don't know who's going to be on the board in round 2 for you or round 3, but how are you feeling about wide receivers here in Scottfish?
I want the elite wide receivers, so I kind of want whoever falls in that. Like we talk about AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, like Garrett Wilson. You talked about Harrison Jr. The guys in the range that are going to be like viewed as back ends, like between wide receiver 10, wide receiver 17, whoever in that range, like I view can take a massive jump forward this year and be a top 12 wide receiver. Because like you're only starting a singular wide receiver right in this format. You can start as many as you want, but like. So whoever falls, and it's whichever guy people view as ugly or whatever, right? The other thing with wide receivers that I really want is return yards guys, and this is the thing we can talk about return yards because of the boost, like a Greg Dortch or Rashid Shaheed are getting. Like Dortch was 22 points per game. No one really talks about that at all last year because of the boost. Mm-hmm. The whole issue with the receiving yard is we have no idea how these guys are how it's going to work out with the receiving yard. So I think that's the whole You got to fire darts. But I'm not going to take like Rashid Shaheed in round 4 because I'm not 100% convinced he keeps the receiving, like the return yards, all that role. Like I think there's yeah. So like if it's around 6, 7, sure, but like he's getting pushed up really high, and I'm like, ugh, there's elite positions there. So you kind of have to be careful with it because it could burn you in the ass. Like he might not be returning kicks this year. It's like, well.
Remember all the Scott Fishbowl mocks where we said don't trust them, these don't mean anything because QBs don't get punted? Yeah, look at this. What's it? What do I have? 8 out of the first 9, 7 out of the first 8. It went all QBs. So
yeah, makes sense. That's how all it goes, right? We always do it in mocks.
Yeah. What are you thinking, Aaron? How are you feeling so far on this?
I got one of the 4 or 5 guys I wanted. At 5, I had it ranked Allen, Hurts, CMC, Richardson, Lamar. I wanted CMC to slip to me, but he went just before me. And then I had to go with Richardson and Lamar. I debated, and I just said Richardson based on the fact that I decided, like, I'm typically a risk-averse kind of guy. I like to build for depth and have nice, solid teams all the way around. This is a 3,000-plus player field. I'm shooting upside on every pick. I'm going for nothing but boomer bust guys. Like there's going to be the guys who fall like T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, where if they hit, I'm going to have wide receiver 2s. If they miss, I'm going to have shit. This is Ricky Bobby, baby. Your first or your last in this shit.
Yes, let's go. I love it. That's what I'm talking about. You're speaking of my heart right now.
I want to win my division at very least or be completely out of it to the point where I don't have to pay attention after the first month.
Hey, I mean, last year I had my first 3 picks were Andrews, Eckler, and Henry last year, so I was out of it real quick. So I feel you on that one.
I had Cup Cousins and JT were my first.
You're like, it's cooked. I'm cooked.
Yeah, I finished second last, and I was just like, yeah, I'm done.
Yep, makes sense.
Let's see. Yeah, I had Andrews, Jefferson, and Cousins. So yeah. Totally fucked. But Aaron, so what are you thinking here? What are you thinking here in the next few rounds? Oh, this is just
I know. I'm scrolling. Holy shit! Look at this one. You guys went, hey?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
these guys are crushing it.
We were flying. We've been stuck on this 112 guy for like 2 hours, hour and a half here. He was in the chat when this draft started. These 11 picks went in a span of about 15 minutes, and he hasn't picked since. I wish there was a way to do all 3. So I'm just kind of looking over the board. So early QB here, followed by a wide receiver run. But that's kind of predictable. That's how it goes every year. If you're in the last 4 picks, you're punting quarterback. This one, you haven't gotten far.
No, I was taking about 45 minutes with my pick. I think it's interesting with the wide receivers going like Lamb and Hill over the elite running back options. I think that's an interesting choice just because what's Cooper Kupp's like? I think he's the only guy that's come close to 30 points per game, like in the scoring format, like at all. Like Kupp was at 29 in 2021. Like that's the peak you can get. So you really need something like that from a wide receiver to truly give you the difference. So that's why I just struggle with the wide receivers that early. But I get it. Like they're awesome players.
For me, it's CMC. That was another one. That's why I wanted CMC because with this scoring, I wasn't thinking wide receiver at all. Like even last year, like okay, so I had Cody Carpentier. He picked in my division. It was all player profiler guys. He picked at the 11 or 12 or whatever, and they were celebrating at the end of the day. He started the 1-2 turn with Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. It doesn't really matter. And that was more of a wide receiver friendly bracket last year. This doesn't like I don't know about you. I'm at where the hell's mine? You're on screen. Let me see. I started with A-Rich. Depending on who gets around, like I would like to go tight end and then I think the 3rd round is where it gets interesting for me because I have a couple that I'd like to add if I can get them. Like if it gets to, let me see, can I scroll my board up here? Is that showing up, my board?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got it now.
Okay. So I don't necessarily want to rush it for Dak or Joe Burrow, but if I can get Kyler or Jaden Daniels in like the 3rd or 4th round, I'd like to add them on and just see if I could, like if I leave the first 3 rounds with Richardson, a top 3 tight end, and Jaden Daniels, I'm happy with that. I'm shooting for just absolute blow-up weeks. I don't really care. If those 2 or 3 quarterbacks go before it gets back to me in the 3rd round, I'm probably going to punt and wait till the 5th or 6th and draft a JJ McCarthy, Drake May type. But like, I don't really have any interest in going QB to start here. I'll have nothing by the time it gets back to me. So, like I said,
like
tight end. If Bijan, Brees, or JT falls to me at the 208, I will probably pivot and go there, and then maybe run tight end in the 3rd round, unless Jaden Daniels. Because, like I said, Jaden Daniels is really the high upside quarterback I'm targeting here, but it all depends who falls to me. Like I said, you guys had all those elite running backs were gone, right, by this point? Oh, no, so, okay, I would have probably taken Gibbs over the tight end, but I don't know. What are you guys thinking?
And JT's still there as well. But for me here, and we just chatted about it. Like, I love that. We talked about the fact that we don't really want wide receivers here, or at least personally, I don't, unless you have an elite guy, right? I could have taken an AJ Brown. No, thanks. We talked about the fact that we could have stacked Lamar with Mark Andrews, which was a consideration. But given the fact that there's only 2 tight ends off the board, there's 4.5 elite guys, if you count Evan Ingram, who are still left, who can easily make it back to me in the 3rd round. It's just, if you look here at the quarterbacks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there were only 7 quarterbacks that were taken when it came back around for my 2nd pick. So I took the 8th off the board, and I took Kyler with the rushing upside over a Joe Burrow or a Trevor Lawrence or whoever. And the thing is that,
No, go.
What's that? Oh, but the last point I just want to make there is that, if you have these 2, if you're taking the value that falls, and in this case, I have 2 rushing quarterbacks, I have elite floors with potential elite ceilings, and then I can just build. I'll probably go for a tight end in the 3rd round, scoop up a bunch of RB value in the middle rounds there with guys who can just eat, and then I'm just going to most likely punt wide receiver and take the Deontay Johnsons of the world who fall.
No, but that's what I was thinking when I looked at your draft there. I like Kyler Murray. I would have, I don't know, you went quarterback because you stacked the rushing quarterbacks. If my option was quarterback, I don't think I would have done it with CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love. I would have just waited. Like I said, I probably would have also done it with Jaden Daniels, but I think you could wait for the 3rd round. But I showed you, did I show you my board? Freaking Jordan Love.
Yeah, bring it up.
108. That's crazy.
It's tough,
There's
man.
no way I wrote Jordan Love there.
It's the same bet with Stroud and those guys. Like, for them to give you the truly difference-making elite season, they got to go 40-plus touchdowns. That's a hard bet for me to make on any quarterback. It's just rough, man. It's so hard. I don't know why you would do that. But, I mean, they probably really like Love or they like the Packers, so I get it. I understand the thought process. It's a narrow path to weave, going that bet there, where I see other guys, and I've seen, I don't know why Amon-Ra is falling behind, Jefferson or Chase. Points per game basis, he could easily outscore those guys this year, because you want the guys that are going to get all the targets and all the receptions. How this goes, Amon-Ra gets a boost. He was 23.7 points per game last year. Chase has never beat that. Jefferson's only beat that 1 year, and he was barely beat that points per game. So I think I saw someone, I think it was your division, Aaron, where Amon-Ra went above those guys. I actually think that's a smart bet. I don't mind going that route at all.
Don't mind me. I scattered us all over quickly, but this was my point here. Kyler, look at the rushing totals.
Yes.
For the last few years. This is why I want to go for the rushing upside. I don't understand. You know what the problem is with taking someone like Love or even CJ Stroud here? It's that they're drafting in regular super flex leagues. And I would be willing to bet they're people who they're not, I don't know who they are. I guess that guy's an analyst who took CJ. Oh, no, he's not. Okay, so the 106 and the 108, I believe, are not in the industry. They're just fans. And that's someone who's done redraft, or that's someone who's done Superflex leagues, but not really checked to see the difference in this Superflex setting, because it's not really Superflex. It's Superflex, but it's much more valuable for the rushing QBs. So, there's no way I have CJ Stroud as my 102 in some Superflex leagues. I don't want him in the 1st round of this. And Jordan Love, I don't want anywhere near the 108, but that's just me.
Yeah, me either. It's I don't mind Love in traditional leagues with you, but in this format, no, I'm not. I'm not in on like that.
Yeah. And Jesse mentioned the point about the touchdowns, right? Like the fade on Patrick Mahomes is ridiculous. I've seen him available at the 107, 108 in some leagues. Patrick Mahomes certainly did had his struggles last season. That was me. Joe Burrow just went in my league. But Patrick Mahomes had his struggles last season. But of course, if there's one quarterback who can throw for 50 touchdowns every single season, it's Patrick Mahomes. They did everything to build around him. So outside of Mahomes and the rushing QBs, you're really playing with fire. Aaron, if you go back to mine real quick for a second and just look at a couple of these teams who are building, right? You're really playing with fire if you go CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott at the end, and then don't take another quarterback there, rushing quarterback, because now you're banking on that third, fourth tier of quarterback to get you those points, and few of them have rushing upside. But you could, of course, go like you're saying, Aaron, like a Drake May, Jaden Daniels over there, and look, you have a top end wide receiver, so everyone's build is totally viable. But here, Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, those are two quarterbacks that could throw for 45 touchdowns this season. Yeah. But again, that bet is maybe not as strong as the floor isn't there the way it is, but the ceiling still is with the rushing QBs.
It's funny because I expected my league Mahomes to be like available when it got to me. So I thought either Richardson or Jackson would be gone, and I'd have to probably take Richardson or Jackson. We were a pick away from all three of us starting with Jackson here. Hey, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Also, so I'm on your board. What scares me here, like I understand Sicoli in the 10 slot. He's got to punt QB and go Bijan and Jefferson and just lean into it. What I don't understand is if you're a mid-round here, why are you leaning into the wide receiver heavy build from the 5 spot? I don't understand that at all. I don't know why I guess if you really love Tyreek Hill and you don't want Jackson or Richardson, maybe you punt it there, but why are you doubling down here and taking AJ Brown? And I don't understand I said, this draft is really, I think, position dependent. The last few guys have to punt, but I don't understand punting quarterback from the 5 slot.
Yeah, I mean, I get
agree
with Hill.
you, but to me, I just wanted to say, these two QBs are locked in top 6. I think you take AJ Brown at the top 6, but unless he's injured, I don't think, or somebody goes off, ahead of him, I think he's probably locked in as a top 6 guy. I could see Jefferson falling out of that with this situation. I could see, Chase and Burrow have had their own injury concerns. I could see them falling out. But to Jesse's point, and I'll let him say it, is that Tyreek Hill is elite. And if you add another elite option, you have an advantage at that one position. You'll have to make it up elsewhere. But yes, for me, I don't want to put all of my eggs in the wide receiver basket here.
Yeah, same. Like I would much rather, like if you go Hill, like that's fine. Like he's a difference maker. Like he's 26 points per game plus in this format. He's one of the few, like him and Lamb are the only two guys to really go nuclear last year. Like with Hill, like I think the only question is like, is he going to get injured or anything like that happens? Like you're basically banking on fall off. Like he's going to be difference making. Looking at the other players available though, compared to AJ Brown, because Taylor has outscored AJ Brown like every year in this format. And like, it's really hard for me to see someone, particularly when you're only starting one wide receiver, like you're putting AJ Brown into the flex spot. So like you basically need him to be truly special to do that. And I would just rather get my running back, tight end, or chase an elite quarterback and try to go that if you think any of those guys are available. But people love to build different strategies. That's what makes this great. It's not something I would personally go with that.
I hate that strategy. Punting, like if I'm that early, like I said, I was the 105. I never considered, with the exception of CMC, I never considered anything but a quarterback. What I want to know is, how do you have that connected and launched Fantasy Pros Draft Assistant? How did you get that to come up there? Whose screen is that, Jeremy?
You have to download it. That's me. You have to download it on your browser, which I've had for a few years now. But I don't know. I don't know if it works for Scott Fish though.
You can go to Dynasty Data Lab and put in your league on the Scott Fish Bowl settings, and you can do it, and it'll tell you players available, not available, like who's going to be there ADP wise. So you could use that because like they got all the sleeper leagues, and that's what we're going to be using. So we can do that too.
And Dynasty Nerds has a tool as well, I think, for Scott Fish.
There's a ton of them,
so that's available too. Yeah.
No, I just seen that one. I've never seen that come up on the screen like that.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I
I'm
do
on the
UFC every
desktop. I've never seen it either because I'm never on the desktop.
I'm gonna try
Always
and
doing it
install
from
it.
my phone. Throw up.
Here, I'll
Yeah,
show you.
Jesse, why don't
Let me
throw
show
up
you
a
this real
Facebook
quick. So this is the Dynasty Data Lab one. I have
Right
Dread
back.
Pirate Roberts plugged in. It shows you who's still available in my league based on ADP. So if you want to, people want to use this, you can see like where players have been going ADP wise based on the leagues that are drafted, and it's going to fluctuate with the draft. So you'll see players move, but like it kind of shows you who's going to be available your upcoming pick. So you can kind of plan based on your strategy if there's a player you like. I think it's just a really cool tool to have. You can unconnect and just have all the leagues, but this is nice because it just takes players off the board for you to see who's ever going. Obviously, I'm only on pick, like 7 right here. So, like, we have a ways to go, but I think it's just a cool thing you can use and go from there because it's cool. It helps it out. Because, like, I get flustered sometimes trying to, like, when I don't have all the information in front of me. Yeah, I'm going to pick 7.
Well, yeah, see, for me, that's why I want to install it. Not like it'll matter for me, because the only times I really want to use it is when I'm at work. And when I'm at work, I'm not on desktop anyways, so it probably won't work for me anyways, but still.
Yeah.
It's a nice tool to have. I very rarely am I ever drafting like right now. Oh, I just got mine to come up too. Sweet.
Oh, yeah, yours is connected, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I just got mine to come up. I want to see what happens when I click on it now. Launch draft assistant. Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
That's
I'm curious.
cool.
Like.
I never knew that.
Does it work? Nice.
Yeah, it worked. It worked. I gotta go. I have all my leagues connected to it because I use the app for Fantasy Pros sometimes. Like when I'm driving around and I'm at work and I can't sit there and go through my spreadsheets, I'll bring out the phone and go to the draft wizard there and see what their suggestions are. Just if I'm debating between players. But like I said, it's more when I'm just flustered because I'm driving around and I can't sit there and it's like, damn it. You have my spreadsheets at home all day, and the second I leave the house, all of a sudden I'm on the clock, and it's like you.
Yes. That's why I hate drafting on my phone. That because like you have to pull up different stuff and get out and go back in. I'm just like that's why I don't enjoy.
But listen, there's no shame in that game. I mean, it took me years using that tool and the mock draft simulator to get to a point where I am now. To a point where I don't use it, but then again, all of us are on Fantasy Pros. We can just pull up our own rankings, and use it in the draft room, so that works as well. But yeah, listen, all the tools are available for you to use however you like. I love the tool that Jesse threw up there, and just use whatever the Aikido. That's not the Aikido tool, right, Jesse?
Yeah, that's the Daiko. Yeah, that's the Daiko on Dynasty Data Lab. That's his website. So you just go to dynastydatalab.com, click on SFB. It'll pull up all the SFB, and then if you go top left corner, just click your division. It's going to X out all the players drafted in your division. So, it'll make it really easy for your individual leagues.
That's funny that you say that, though, about we can just use our rankings because our Fantasy Pros rankings are up there. I don't know how many times that's caused me to update my rankings where I've gone in and looked at my rankings and been like, oh, fuck that. What am I thinking? And I'm like, I'm moving that guy ahead. And then it's like I just made the pick I wanted anyway, so why did I even bother? But
yeah.
Good process, Aaron. Always revising.
Yes. It'd be really cool if one of us could actually make a pick here on the clock, but my league seems to have died out.
It's slow down. I mean, me and Jeremy did earlier, but yeah, it's like this one's gonna be cruising, so Jeremy might be the next pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't get to see that. I was traveling back and there was construction, and yep. Now I'm stuck here waiting. Like I said, these picks were rattled off in 15 minutes. We were about to pick a minute, and then we've been stalled out on Detroit, whatever the hell this is, for 2 hours now, which is funny because, like I said, if I go back, I believe he's in the chat an hour and a half ago. Where is it?
Yeah, it's middle of the day. People are working. I think everyone gets excited when it kicks off, but then life happens. So, hopefully he picks soon just so you get your 4 hours for everybody in the first round. And then, it's a slow draft. And as impatient as I am in slow drafts, because I'm like, as soon as it's me on the clock, I'm like, if I'm awake, I'm hitting the button, I'm scrolling through all this stuff. I know that other people have lives unlike myself. But Aaron, I'm super impatient with it, just like you. It is what it is. But yeah, thankfully my draft is moving quickly.
Like I'm very impatient too. I'll consistently check. But I'm not gonna be like, Like I saw somebody complaining earlier, and I was like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like it's fine. We will get to it when it happens. People have lives, so like it's okay.
Well, no,
Because I saw that yesterday on Twitter, and I was like, are you fucking for real, dude? This is a charity league. Like chill out. It's not that important.
It depends though, because I seen someone losing it earlier. They're 2 hours in, and the 101 in their league hasn't picked and didn't set a queue. So that's a little different because even Scott, he says there's no rush, but Scott wants to get through the first round of all these drafts as quickly as possible because he wants everyone to check in to say that they're there. It's kind of like attendance. And if you're not there, he needs to replace you today. That's what he said. He wants everyone to get through it. But you know what's funny? The first year probably did it. Yeah. But the first year, like four years ago, I think I got into one of the satellite leagues because I didn't get in. And I read, a how-to, because I was new and I didn't know anything. Read one of the how-to strategy guides, and the strategy guide said the number one strategy for slow drafts, always milk your full 8 hours or 12 hours. You never know what breaking news can happen when you're on the clock, blah, blah, blah. So I swear to God, I had every pick that year. I was 7 hours and 59 minutes. And then the next year, I'm like, fuck this. I'm not doing this shit anymore.
Right. Like, it's not. I understand why people do that, but in this like charity event like this, and like, we talk about with like this particular charity event, it's like, they're just trying to make sure. So we'll see somebody more than likely get replaced at some point today, like because we're a ways into the draft. I think they started 3 hours ago, so we probably have 5 hours until someone gets replaced. But it happens. Like it's just unfortunate part of it.
Aaron, this one's for you from Cody Carpentier.
Hello. All right. Do you guys want to talk about?
Just like I had a question for you, Jesse. I know I talked to him earlier. There's actually been 4 or 5 people who've taken him 101, but I was going to ask you something. How did you get to what you showed me on this, Jesse?
Go to ADP. Then SFB ADP. Yeah, and then the top left corner, you can just click your division.
Nice.
So hit the top left, and then your division, whatever it is. It'll be the first thing down.
Here?
Click it, So whatever the name of your division is, just click it or type it in. And then boom. It's pretty dope. Yeah, I like it. I'm a big fan of this tool for Dynasty, but he's using this for SFB. I was like, cheers, you, sir.
I never knew what this was. I always seen screenshots, and I'm like, what app is that with the little like beehive looking fucking thing on it?
You can also change them. If you don't like it, you can change the filters or settings to like go traditional draft board style or look. He said he's played millions of hours of Catan, so this is why he set it up this way. And I was like, yep, Settlers of Catan. This is what it reminds me of.
I don't know what that is, but I like the look.
Oh, it's a great board game.
Look at the clusters of wide receivers. It really gives you an interesting, just the way it is, it really lets you see. I don't know. It's cool. I like that tool. Never used it before.
That trio in the third is really interesting with ETN. Going above Kyron Williams and Henry, I think is a very bold decision. Like Kyron Williams was a monster last year. Henry's been a monster. Like I personally would not take ETN above those guys. I think that's just kind of foolish. Like you're asking for something he's never done to happen this year. Like not even close.
Well, ETN was RB3 in these settings last year, wasn't he?
He was, but he was like well below those two guys. So like Kyron was 28 points per game. ETN was 20. What is he at? 20.8 points per game. Henry was 20.1 points per game. He had a down year last year. So, like, Kyron Williams absolutely, like, helped you out way more than he did. And I think, personally, between these two guys, I guess you just really have to beat ETN this year. But I'm not. Like, I don't think they improved the offensive line enough and stuff.
Man, this is the worst when you get the adrenaline going because you're like, I get to make a pick. And then it's like,
and then you're like, no,
you're fucking dead. And then you see people like Jeremy and their leagues are like halfway, almost done the second round, and it's like,
let's go.
All right.
This is the first season. This is the first season that it's happened for me. This is year 4 of the Scott Fish Bowl, and it's the first time that it's happened that this thing is cruising along. Everyone's just really excited, but we'll see. We'll hit a lull.
So 2 of you went Lamar in the first round. I almost did. I went Richardson. You're the only one who made a second pick here in Kyler. What do you look? Oh, you're on the wrong screen too. Hey, Jesse. I was going to say, who are you looking for here with your second pick? What are your thoughts? For me, like I already told you what my kind of thought was for the second pick, but
Kyler, like we're talking to Jeremy about it. It's Kyler. Like he's the one QB I view. I think you made the case for Daniels earlier. I think those are the 2 guys, but like Daniels falls like early third. So if he can fall to the middle of third, I would love that.
I want Daniels in the third, not the second.
Yeah. Like if I knew I could get Daniels in the third, I would take a skill position player. But Kyler's the guy. Like maybe he fell to Jeremy, so I'm hoping he falls to me. We'll see. I don't think he will. If he doesn't, then I'm just gonna pound a running back or a tight end, whichever. If because I have Lamar, like I like Andrews, but like we were talking about the week 14 bye weeks, like that scares the hell out of me. Also, if you went like Daniels early, that's 2 of your quarterbacks with rushing. Like they're both bye weeks in the playoffs. So like that's a whole nother decision you have to make. It's like, ooh, that sucks. You just have to back end it with some quarterbacks later on. So I would choose the best running back who's ever available more than likely.
What's his ADP? Kyler's 15 in this?
Look, Kyler's like 203. I'm looking at him right now early in the second.
Yeah, I said 15. Yeah.
QB
7. Daniels is – where's Daniels at on here?
Third round, I think.
Is he?
I've got him.
I'm looking for what color.
He's QB 11, number 27.
Yeah, he's early third. So if he could fall, that would be great. I would love that. But realistically, like I would just take – I think Taylor or Barkley is like a really good pick in the second. I prefer Taylor. Okay. But
so then
love
so you have the same decision as me because he already has a quarterback. But so if Kyler doesn't fall to you in the second and Daniels doesn't fall to you in the third, are you just punting QB till like round 5 or 6 and looking for Stafford or something like that? Because that's what I'm.
Yeah, I would try to stack. Yeah, Geno's dope.
Stafford, Geno.
I think you can get Geno like round 8. I think you can get him later.
Why don't you roll up on that? Yeah. See, I was just gonna say, do you have a preference if you miss out here? Who are you looking to target late? I can switch to mine if you want.
Look, I'm
just
looking
click
on this
QB. Click QB and you can go highlight them all.
We're here.
Herbert, I really like Herbert in the 4th. I think he's good value. Stafford in the 6th, but like I took Watson in the Rainbow Bowl. I'd take Watson in the 7th in this format too. Like I would just whoever I'm getting in this late range, I would try to orchestrate my draft around that second quarterback where I could try and stack it with the skill position player because whoever I'm taking there, I'm betting on them to succeed. So I got to stack them and try to make it work. So if it's Watson, I'm getting Cooper. If it's Levis, I'm going after Hopkins or Ridley. Like I'm going to try to like work my draft around those. If it's Herbert, like I'll just go with McConkey later on. So I would try to like orchestrate my draft around whichever quarterback goes there. I'm not really into Lawrence. I would go Goff or Woods.
Would you push it to Bryce?
I'm not taking Bryce Young, dude. There's no way in hell I'm taking this format. Like that scares the crap out of me. Like I like him in Dynasty, but dude, I don't want to bet on him in this singular format like this. It's like, oof.
Fair.
I don't hate the QBs in the 4th round at the end here in Herbert, Tua, Lawrence, but I don't know if I want to use. I think I'd rather punt those ones and just like you said, we've got Cousins, Stafford in the 6th. I don't mind Watson in the 7th if he has anything left. Yeah. Do we have any ideas? Any of these late QBs, have you guys looked it up? Any of them have significant rushing upside? I feel like
Watson's the one guy that it's been a while, but like
Levis.
So
how about Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones
has been over 20.
Daniel Jones. That's a good one.
He's the guy.
In the 11th.
He's been over 20 points per game 2 times in this format, and they're like different. So like in round 11, if I have a sketchy QB2, I'm fine grabbing him. Or you can go Bo Nix, Drake May, these rushing quarterback rookies. Like see how it goes. It's risky as hell, but like Daniel Jones isn't secure at all. Like he could be getting benched. You know what I'm saying? So I'm fine just shoot my shot on one of those guys. I think Rodgers is fine. Like I don't mind Rodgers or Watson or Geno late. If that's how my draft goes and I don't get Kyler, that might be how it goes. I just don't know.
We have picks in my division.
Ooh, Gibbs. Oh, I like that.
John and Gibbs.
Ooh, and everyone's here, Aaron. You're going to get a few, I think.
Ooh, I don't know about that over Brees, man. This format,
I don't hate it.
I would have gone Bijan and Brees or Bijan and Taylor over Gibbs. If Brees or Taylor falls to me, they're my pick. Sorry, go ahead.
I think the hope here is that Jahmyr Gibbs just continues to ascend. I think he will. I just don't think David Montgomery is going away, and he's the preferred goal line guy. I think they'll split the goal line. I think like they did toward the end of last year. But David Montgomery is the guy there. Brees Hall is on an island on his own. Like Braylon Allen isn't ready for as good as he's looked very early on in camp. There's nobody there that can touch Brees Hall, so he's going to be a monster.
Yeah, that's the whole problem.
So Daniel Jones is going at an ADP in the 11th round. If I punt QB and take Daniel Jones in the 10th round, am I out of my fucking mind?
You better get another quarterback or a couple of quarterbacks. You better take some shots on quarterback.
I
would hammer like 3 or 4 quarterbacks in that range. I would just be like, fuck it.
So if I do that, it would be like Daniel Jones in the 10th, and then in the 11th or 12th, whoever's left of Will
Nix and May,
Levis,
those
Derek
guys.
Carr, Gino, Drake May, Bo Nix.
Yeah.
There'll be a third, but it'll be a low upside pocket passer.
I think if you're in that range of quarterback, you specifically don't have to focus on quarterbacks. Like you can get that points per game from other positions. So if you talk we talk about Mostert, those guys, like those running backs that are getting volume, or those wide receivers, there's tight ends, like you could take a shot on, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, like I don't think you need to force quarterback in this format. If you miss out on the elite guys, like I said, Lawrence in the 4th round, that scares the crap out of me. Like even Goff in that range, I'm like, oof, man, I don't know. So
yeah, in this format,
it's all about figuring out. Like I don't want Tua in the 4th. There's no way I want Tua in the 4th. Like that just
That's
seems
what I mean.
crazy.
Punt and take Cousins in the 9th or something.
Hell yeah, give me Kirk Cousins all day. I love Kirk Cousins. Like yeah, I would. I think Cousins goes earlier. Hold on, though. Where's he at?
Is anybody?
Yeah, he's in around 6.
Yeah. No, but 6 point for passing touchdown. Don't forget. So we're boosting these rushing quarterbacks, but once they're gone, I mean, the guys who can throw touchdowns like a Jared Goff, like a Kirk Cousins. I mean, those guys are still plenty valuable over what's left on the board, and I want them in most cases over whatever's left at wide receiver. So if you're going to punt it, get your wide receivers early. I'd say fill up on running back, and then get that QB2 safe floor guy because you have all the other elite position players.
I'd love it if we could keep this going to get me and Jesse on the clock here. Jesse, how many you got? I've got a solid 6 or 7.
I have not looked at my draft in a minute.
Not close. I'm closer than you. Do you? All right.
Hold on. I need to pull it up. We have not moved. So Lord Millsy is still on the clock. We had an issue with him. Like Scott was trying to get him to verify his sleeper and Twitter username. So it might take a while with him.
Okay, so Dynasty. Yes, win now. Sending Ayuk, DJ Moore, Bateman, and Thielen for Tyreek and Kyron. I did.
Oh.
Well, it's for me. I'd rather Tyreek.
I don't mind it.
I'm not all that.
I don't mind it either.
I don't mind it at all. Like I think Kyron for DJM's fine, and then it's basically Ayuk and Bateman for freaking Thielen and Tyreek, and that's fine. Like there's a little bit of value loss, but like Tyreek's gonna massively outscore Ayuk this year. Like it's not even gonna be close.
I misread it. I was taking the deal when I thought you were giving up Thielen and only getting Tyreek and Kyron. I don't care. Thielen means nothing to me.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I'll take Tyreek and Kyron. I'm fine with that. Like I'm okay.
Yeah, Bateman and Thielen.
Make sure
you can just cross them off the list. Who cares about their value? It's Ayuk for Tyreek. It's Ayuk for Tyreek, and then Kyron for DJM. I'm okay with it. Win now. I like it.
Just make sure you're insulated the rest of your roster because you're taking a really old wide receiver. It's hard to sell that guy. And Kyron Williams, a year from now, like there's much more risk in his value. So as long as you're insulated with your roster, like I'm fine making moves like this.
Yeah, the other thing we talked about quickly with Tyreek is the fact that I think he's 30 years old, but he's not retiring, right? Everybody is saying Tyreek Hill is retiring. He wants to retire. No, it's not happening. He's seeking a new deal. Tyreek Hill plays more than 1 year. His value is too low. So if you get the 1 year, his value is on par. If he plays more than 1 year, I mean, he's gonna break dynasty fantasy football. So go get him.
Yeah, it's just some guys are unicorns, and that's Tyreek Hill. Like. And same thing with Henry and the CMC. These guys, like certain players are just different, man. That's Tyreek Hill. He's always been this way. So, like, it's not going to change for him.
Did you say how close you are to another pick?
I'm still on the 10. What is it? 6? I'm not sure.
So
the 106. Yeah, no, sorry. 107. So the 106 picked 107. I got a ways to go. I'm not going to pick.
So I'm probably the closest. Although I guess Jesse or Jeremy, you were close on the turn, kind of, hey?
Yeah,
I'm still closer.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't know. Look, these guys are all online. Nate, whatever I got 3 in a row who are all online. And like I said, the first 11 made boom, boom, boom. They were all gone. But I guess we'll see.
Here, let's put this. I'm gonna put this in the chat. It's a dynasty question I just got on Twitter. Okay, answer. Let's go. What do you guys think about this deal? With Ayuk, I think this is value insulation. Like you're taking 2 risky assets and Cooper and Watson, but like we said, if you're insulated, I don't mind it, but I would prefer the Ayuk side just because I'm worried about Watson, and then Cooper's also aging out. So like, this is a tough one for me. Where are you guys at on still?
I think
I'm Watson by a
the
mile.
issue is,
Go
I
ahead.
get that. The issue is you are getting the value on the quarterback side in a super flex league, regardless of, Deshaun Watson is one of these volatile guys who could flip his value very easily with a good even half season, let alone full season. But Brandon Ayuk is just a special talent. We've seen it, whether he stays and they move on from Debo, or whether he moves on, he's going to give you that value. And he's 5 years younger than Cooper, who is probably not this year, but who will experience the decline. If you really need a quarterback, I'm okay with this deal, and you have a shot everywhere else. Otherwise, in almost every case, I'm going to take Ayuk.
Yeah, the range of outcomes with Watson scares the shit out of. Like, if it's this time next year and he struggles again, like, he's basically worthless in Dynasty. That's kind of what it goes, right? So,
but on the other hand, if he's a top 10, he used to be a perennial top 5. Even if he's a QB1, he's worth more than both of them. I'm taking Watson. I think he has enough left that there's still something there.
Yeah, you'd have to know your team and, like, are you comfortable taking on that type of asset? Because both of those guys, Cooper and Watson, could suffer massive value declines in the upcoming year. So, like, that's where you have to be okay. Like, Ayuk's going to stay pretty level just because he's young. He should be good. Even if he gets injured out for the season, he'll come back, his value will remain the same. Those other two guys, like, they could fall off a cliff value-wise, where you look at this deal next year and you're like, I have two guys worthless, and the other guy is like, so you just have to be okay making that move when you make the move. If you're okay with it, yeah, fine, make the deal.
I think I'm lower on Ayuk overall. Like, I don't think Amari Cooper to Ayuk is enough that I want to chip in maybe a top 12 quarterback. I just, like, it's not like you're going Amari Cooper to CD Lamb here. So it's like, oh shit, okay, I'm gonna get back a number 1 wide receiver for and so what? Maybe Deshaun Watson misses, but I think I'd have to get better than Ayuk to give up a potentially starting quarterback.
I think
I mostly agree. The just point that I want to make is that Ken Dorsey is now the new offensive coordinator in Cleveland. He was booted out the door in Buffalo mid-season last year. He just wasn't able to get it going over there. Now there's opportunity here for him to turn it around, and they don't have the running game with no Nick Chubb or the ghost of Nick Chubb. They will have to pass the football, but there's too many variables here. With a questionable OC, a questionable quarterback, Stefanski hasn't proven that he can get that offense going beyond the elite Nick Chubb carrying the mail. So for me, I'm just kind of out on Watson, and I have a lot of them. So that's a problem for me coming up this season.
Yeah, we talked about it when we were talking about them earlier. Like, Dorsey had that team second expected points per game. Like, the EPA was off. He was the scapegoat because their freaking kicker missed a field goal, and they lost that game in Buffalo. So they kind of used him as the scapegoat for their issues. Like, I think they were better offensively with Dorsey than they were, like, in the second half of the year with Brady. But, yeah, like, there's just a lot of question marks. So with a deal like this and all the changes, I think they're going to pass a lot. It's just, can Watson be good? I just don't know anymore. It's been 4 years since we've seen it. That's the whole issue. So it's like, you got to show it to us at some point, man.
Is there anything more frustrating in a sleeper draft than seeing that the person who's on the clock has the green dot and they're online and are not making the pick?
I know that guy. That's Nate Hamilton.
I know it is, but it's just I'm going to make your fucking pick. I know you're there. God,
I know that guy. That's Jesse in the Rainbow Bowl draft. One pick ahead of me. We got a follow-up question here. Hang on. Let me throw it up. So the previous deal was send Ayuk, DJ Moore, and Bateman and Thielen for Tyreek and Kyren. So he's getting Derrick Henry instead of getting Kyren Williams with Tyreek. What do you think?
In win now, I think I'd rather Derrick Henry.
I don't really care between the two of them. There's more value to gain on the Kyren side than there is the Henry side. So it depends how you want to orchestrate this deal and what you value. Because, like, if Kyren shows out again this year, he's going to be massively overvalued over Henry. Like that's the whole thing with the two of these guys. It's just people are worried about Kyren. But if he puts another top 5 running back season again, like, people are like, fuck, this guy's hot. And he'll be valued in, like, 3rd round startup pick where Henry, like, he's not going to get above the 7th. So, yeah, I don't mind the deal. It's just whatever you prefer with orchestrating teams. Because I kind of hate, like, forcing a value pick on one guy. I'm like, no, take this guy. Like, it's just whatever your team works and how you value those guys. So whichever one you value more, I'm fine with in that deal. Like, I think they both serve you the exact same purpose.
It does go to your point earlier, Jesse. It goes to your point earlier about the fact that it depends what the rest of your team looks like, right? Because if you have a lot of younger pieces all over the map, and you're just buying these old guys for this year production, and you're, like Jesse said, well insulated for the future, then great. I'm fine with it. We all said we prefer Derrick Henry over Kyren this year for a number of reasons. Blake Corum, Sean McVay, always playing hot hands. That offense just being pass first. Will Kyren see the bulk of that? I don't know. We know that Derrick Henry, if healthy, is set to smash in a Baltimore rushing offense when simply because he's alongside Lamar. So if you're super short term and you got some long term pieces, picks inclusive of that, younger players, then I'm happy swapping out Kyren for Henry.
Yeah, like value wise, they're not even close. Kyren's a 4th round startup pick. Henry's a 7th. So if you want to play the value game, you can resell Kyren so much easier than you can Henry. If you're worried about that, like just take the younger player. Like if you expect anything close to similar points per game basis, like I'm always gonna take the younger player because the value is there with Kyren. It's not with Henry. Like it's just not. Like what can you get? What's the best you can get for Henry? Like a late one? Like the best you can get for him possibly? And most leagues you can't even get a 1 for Henry. Like that's the thing, right? So yeah, like for dynasty mindset, I would just take Kyren. But if you want to go Henry, that's totally fine with it. Where are you guys at? Like, let's talk about the receiving stuff. The return yard stuff. Where are you guys at with those return yard guys getting boosts? Where are you comfortable taking them in this format? Oh, there you go. Amon-Ra just off the board.
Ooh.
Where are you guys targeting those return yards guys like Mims, Dort, Shaheed, these guys in expected roles that we should see a massive boost? Because Shaheed's the 8th round pick. I'm looking at the SVB stuff right now. Shaheed is early-ish. Where are you targeting those guys double digits? Where are you at on the return yards, guys?
You're buying last year's production, right? Like I rarely want to do that, especially in redraft, where you're just banking on the fact that Rashid Shaheed holds the role. If he does hold the return role, like you had said earlier, great, he's a value. But at an 8th round cost, it's going to depend who's still on the board and what my needs are. I don't mind that necessarily, but you're still struggling with risk in that situation. Outside of Shaheed, I don't see big offensive roles for these other guys. Dortch, he's a pass for me, and I have Kyler. I'm going to pass on Dortch. I'm going to pass on Mims. I don't know who else is going to return kicks. Cordero Patterson, probably not, and be have a heavy role. I think Shaheed's the only one who has the opportunity, and where he's going, everybody's on him. I'm probably out.
Yes. Yeah, I think go ahead.
No, I have none of them. Like I'm supposed to overpay. Like they're going too high. I'm supposed to overpay on a guy that could probably be like a 15th round sleeper because he returned some kicks last year and had a few decent yardage. Like it's probably going to be inconsistent production at best. Not to mention, if that's all they do, how long are they even guaranteed to stay in the lineup? All it takes is one good receiver, and suddenly, we don't need this guy. Let someone else do it. I'm not overpaying for something that's so unpredictable and just unsustainable. So yeah, I have no shares of pretty much any of them. Even Shaheed.
No, I'm talking just in Scott Fishbowl, not dynasty wise.
No, I mean in Scott Fishbowl, they're all going to go too early. I don't want Shaheed in the 8th round or 9th round or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah, because like Shaheed was wide receiver 6 in this scoring format. Dude, Dortch, I think it gets really interesting. I don't mind 8th round costs. I think that's a steal, but he's getting pushed up earlier than that. Like Mims, still 15 points per game, doing nothing offensively. That shows you kind of the value they can give you, these late round targets. Dortch was 18 and 22 the last 2. So in these later rounds, I'll target those guys because they're giving you actual good production at value. It's just depends how your league values it, right? If they get massively pushed up, then no. But if it's double digit rounds, I'll fucking pull the trigger on all those guys. I don't mind.
But here's the thing, too, to consider is, and we've heard this, and now it's being confirmed by multiple outlets. This is a tweet from last month. Saints special teams coordinator confirms that the injury risk is reduced with the new rule and the whole roster is available. That's a quote to be used on the Saints. I'm sure there's a lot of special teams coordinators considering this. And when you think of guys who are available, Tyreek Hill comes to mind as an option. Think of all the Miami guys, Waddle, Achane, Wright. I mean, all those guys are capable of returning kicks. And will they spread the wealth around to try and gather, some different advantages in the game, or will they give it to one or two who emerges? And if you give me that group of players in Miami, and let's say it's just all the stars, who do you think has the best chance to emerge? Is it Jalen Waddle? Because of his elite yak ability? Is it Tyreek Hill just because of his insane speed, even though he's older? Is it Devin Achane because of his explosiveness? I don't know the answer, but I'm not going to try and guess just simply because they're going to get return yards. I'm going to try to find return yards on the waiver wire, I think.
Yeah, I think there's so much uncertainty with it. That's why in the later rounds, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. So look, Rashid Shaheed in the 8th round, followed by Jaden Reed, Marcus Brown, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Roma. What?
For return yards, Raheed has them too.
Oh no, but what I'm saying is, look at Rashid. The guys available after Shaheed goes. There's 15 of them. I'd rather have. I'd rather have the upside of Worthy, Reed, Deontay, Adunze, Godwin, JSN. I don't get what we're doing. I get he finished high in this last year. What would he finish the year before in these settings? Oh,
he was 19 points per game 2 years ago.
Oh, was he?
So he was really I don't mind Godwin, but these wide receiver 2s, I'm not touching those guys over him because the wide receiver 2s, what's the upside of the wide receiver 2 in offense? Like JSN, how good's he got to be to give you that? I think it's a real good question. You have the wide receiver 1s, I get it. I'm all aboard those guys. Keenan Allen smashed last year, so I understand. But if we get into wide receiver 2s and offenses, I think it's a risky bet with those guys. Similar to the return yards, it's a similar kind of risky bet, so it's just what you prefer personally. Ooh, another wide receiver.
Yeah, and I agree with that point that you made, but the problem is who in the New Orleans Saints offense is better than Rashid Shaheed as a wide receiver? And I think the answer is Chris Olave, and that's it. And their tight ends are a mishmash of guys who have proven to be average. Alvin Kamara is aging. They need Rashid Shaheed to help move this offense. And I think that makes him more volatile in terms of will he maintain the role. Here are some other names, and these are just projections from Pro Football Network, so take it with a grain of salt. But here's some other names of guys who have a role on offense and could be kick returners, or at least did some of that last year. Tajay Spears.
Yes.
Cordell Patterson, probably not. Xavier Gibson is getting a lot of hype in New York as the wide receiver 3 for the Jets. If he's that and the kick returner in an Aaron Rodgers offense, maybe. Tyrone Tracy, he's another potential option here for a dual role. Ty Chandler, I like that. But outside of those 3-4 names, the rest of these names that I'm looking at are not it. You got Marvin Mims, and that's about it. Maybe Justice Hill. If Keaton Mitchell's out for a long period of time, but that's it. I mean, it's not a ton of guys, and it's not guaranteed who's going to step in and do that. And like we just talked about with the Saints special teams coordinator, anybody can return kicks. So I'm just going to take the guys who are the best ADP on the board. I'm not really going to worry about return yards.
Yeah, the thing about Shaheed is he was All-American in college doing the job. I don't know who on the roster is better at kick returning than so I think he's probably the safest, which is why he gets pushed up the most. When you get into those other guys, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think Reed's role is, I don't know what he's going to do kick returner, if it's even going to stay with him, because I think the Packers have an all-pro who was injured last year who might do it. It's a guy that's going later. I can't remember his name, but I think there's another guy on their roster who's a really good kick returner too. So I don't know if Reed gets it either. So this is the whole, it's just question marks, man. We're taking shots in the dark on a lot of these guys.
Nixon.
Yeah.
Keshawn Nixon. Yep.
Yeah, so he could have both those roles. It's just and we look at Fancy Pros or whoever website, they have the guys listed that they think, but it's so tough to predict this. But if you think anybody is going to get that role, I would make the bet on those guys because this is kind of what we're doing. We're trying to chase the ceiling upside. Yeah. So I'm fine throwing darts on all of those guys. If you believe, because we're going to be wrong on a lot of these guys anyways, right? It's just is what it is.
Right now, our lads has Taysom Hill in the mix for kick returner.
He was last year. I just showed up. And he was their kick return. He was their third highest kick returner, which had 8 yards. But I just had up. It's 18 yards. He was third behind Shaheed and Lynn Bowden.
Good.
Yeah, like this is why I like Debo so much, because I think they'll probably end up giving Debo some of that work too, because he already gets rushing. If he gets the return, like because he's such a beast in space, like you want to get that out of the ball. So if they do that with Shannon on offense, like I think Debo's a massive value this year because there's upside even attached to his name more than he has. So in like the 6th round, I'm smashing Debo.
Yeah. Our lads is also pegging Jermaine Jackson, who is another wide receiver. I believe he was a UDFA, but he's another small, quick guy as well. What college did he go to? I can't remember.
Jermaine Jackson?
But yeah, he's a guy who, yeah. So, that's another consideration too is, when you move Rashid Shaheed into the offense because you have guys like Jermaine Jackson behind him, someone needs to step up. I think Jermaine Jackson, Bub Means, these are guys who should be returning these kicks, not Rashid Shaheed, but we'll see what happens.
Right. It's going to be interesting for sure. I think that's the whole like wild card in this draft this year, particularly. Like there's the Kansas City running back from the rugby league, like Luis Rees-Zammit, who's going like around 20. He could be their kick returner. They also have Kadarius Toney. Like there's every team you talk yourself into one of these guys. It's just if a guy's offensive and the return yards role, like those are the guys we want because they're going to smash points per game basis. Like that's the guys we want to get.
Yes. But we have to, like, the old school mentality of coaching is still around. It's not everywhere because we have a lot of younger coaches as well. But it used to be that in order to keep a guy on a roster, you found a role for him on special teams because that would ensure that he serves a role on your team. You're able to hold him. This is why Rashid Shaheed was able to stay on the Saints in the last couple of years because he had that role. There are some guys who simply are on teams because of their role on special teams. Now, if we're diminishing that on special teams, there's not necessarily, if Tyreek Hill can return kicks, there's no incentive for teams to keep the wide receiver 7 on their team because he can, they'll use that on an extra lineman or something. So it's just interesting to see how it all shakes out. But I think with the change in the special teams rule as well, and the kickoff rule, it's so hard this year.
Yeah, that's why I like Dortch. He put up 130 points last year just based on the return yardage. He's supposed to accelerate his role offensively, and they're still planning on using return yards. So I think, like, of all those guys in that offense, like, I don't mind firing a 17th round pick on Dortch and see how it works out. Because if it doesn't work out, what happens, right? Like, I just release that guy and pick up somebody else.
He's free. That's true.
Oh, we got another pick in mind, do we? Where is it? No, Jamar Chase. No. Where the hell was mine? These all of a sudden slowed real quick.
They have DJ Dallas, your boy DJ Dallas now in Arizona. Don't sleep on the DJ Dallas kick return.
You can, trust me, as a Seahawks fan, you can sleep on DJ Dallas. Let me tell you, folks, you're not missing much of anything.
You have, right? Funny.
Oh, too funny.
Jesse, you get any picks made in yours?
All right, guys.
I can't.
Nope.
You're on the Dynasty Lab or whatever.
7. Yeah. Still 7.
Yeah, and I haven't had any in mind either. I think I'm just about done here. I'm going to go eat some dinner and try and live a normal life until my 3rd round comes around.
Yeah. For my 2nd, but it doesn't look like. Right. I think I'm about to get a run on QBs here because I think Pistol Pete and we have 2 Pete's back to back there. Is that what's going on here? Pistol Pete and Pacing Pete. A lot of Pete's in here. I think one might be a burner account, but I got a feeling they're gonna go Burrow and Dak here and just stack back to back passing QBs, which is about the worst strategy I want, aside from the guy who stacked receivers at the 106 or 105. No, thank you.
Could backfire. But that's what it is. People are gonna do this stuff all the time. It's fun. I don't mind it. Hey, it works to your advantage, right? So hey, congrats to you.
It does. All right, I guess we're done.
That's it.
I think so.
An hour and a half later. All right.
Yeah,
well, one of you guys can do the outro since I wasn't even on half the show. So it's all yours, boys.
For this guy and this guy and this guy, we're going to go bye-bye.